Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. All right, folks, Big Paul here today with another Anabolic Q&A. We got some good ones on deck today. I'm going to dig into all those questions in just 1 second. All right, first question I have here is from Shades4313. Shades ask, any benefit to going above 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight for enhanced lifters? I noticed that a lot of enhanced guys are eating closer to 1.5 to 2 grams per pound of body weight. So here's the thing with protein. If you look at the studies, I'm trying to remember which one it was, but most of the studies say somewhere around 0.7 to 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight is probably sufficient for hypertrophy. Now, keep in mind, as far as I know, these studies were not done on enhanced lifters, guys running super supplements. Now, it doesn't take a lot of protein to make a pound of muscle. Granted, there's protein turnover in the body every day. I don't remember the exact amount. I think Kurt and I talked about it in our Science of Protein video. You can check that out. Search it up in my channel and you can find it. But it's something like 100 grams of protein in a big bodybuilder per day in protein turnover. So you're going to need at least that much to handle protein turnover. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it's something like that. But you can do the math on it. I think there's something like 450 grams and a pound of muscle. Now, keep in mind that something like only like 20% of that is actual protein structures. So if we do the math on it, there's only something like 80 grams of actual protein in a pound of muscle. Something like that. I could be completely off on that. But the point being here that it doesn't take a lot of protein to make a pound of muscle. A lot less than what people think. Now, granted, we are doing damage to the muscle when we lift. There's protein turnover, repair of damaged tissue, things like that. So it's not just building new muscle, but you get the gist of it. Let's just assume that every single ounce of a muscle was protein tissue. That's still 450 grams. You're not going to gain a pound of muscle in a week. Generally, that would be 52 pounds of muscle per year. Let's just say that you gained a pound of muscle per week. That's a quarter of a pound, or a pound of muscle a month. Let's just say that's a quarter of a pound of muscle per week. If all of that was a protein structure, that's still only 100 and so grams of protein. It's not a lot. So we probably vastly overeat protein. But here's my thought on this. There's really, unless you have kidney damage, there's really no downside to eating extra protein. Protein keeps you full. Other than a lot of protein contains high amounts of saturated fat. So that's something that we want to be mindful of, is to keep our saturated fats low. But it's not going to hurt to eat excess protein. And my mindset is I am going to eat a little extra when I'm trying to build muscle and take super supplements. I run my protein lower than most other coaches do. I am usually somewhere in the gram to a gram and a quarter per pound of body weight. I find that to be sufficient to build muscle. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm a super heavyweight competitor. And I'm running like a gram and a quarter per pound of protein per body mass, something like that. I think somewhere between 300 and 350 grams of protein. And I was on stage at 240, roughly 240, a couple pounds under when I competed this past year. So clearly you don't need a ton of protein. Now there are the old school coaches that say, try eating 2 grams of protein and see what happens. And maybe there is some sort of effect from eating excess protein. I just have found it unnecessary when you're eating higher amounts of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are protein sparing, so you really don't need that extra protein. Now, if I were to eat a lower carbohydrate diet, I probably would eat some excess protein because some of that protein, chances are, is going to be converted to glucose through gluconeogenesis. So you're going to lose some of that to that process. So long story short, you're probably not hurting anything eating excess protein. At a bare minimum, you're just eating very expensive carbs. But if you eat a higher carbohydrate diet, you probably don't need all that extra protein. So on contest prep, I'll shift the protein a little bit higher. In the off season, I'll pull it down a little bit with my own diet. And that's kind of how I do it. Benju asks, if one can't afford to take HGH, is there an HGH secretagogue that's you would recommend or is worthwhile? I don't know, man. I think most of these HGH secretagogues are probably a waste of money. Just save your money until you can afford to buy some HGH. I've seen some evidence that MK677 has some impact on, and there's some of these other ones that have some impact on it. But look, let's say it increases your endogenous HGH production by 20%, and your equivalent HGH production endogenously is like 1 unit a day. What are you getting? 1.2 units? How much of a difference is that really going to make? I don't know the exact numbers on how effective these things are, but I just haven't seen them do a whole lot. I think they're probably a waste of money. Also, as you get older, your body makes less HGH. So how much are you really going to stimulate the pituitary to increase HGH production anyway? I don't know. Personally, I would just save my money, not waste it on an HGH secretagogue. That's my 2 cents. A Kid Family Farm LLC asks, Paul, since you're an older bodybuilder, my feelings are hurt. I am old. What are your thoughts on men in their 50s and 60s and so on living the bodybuilding lifestyle and all that goes with it? Once you get to a certain age, wouldn't you just hang it up and go on TRT and stay healthy? Asking for a friend. Well, it's really a personal decision. It's all what you want out of life. I will say this, that the bodybuilding lifestyle probably isn't the healthiest way to live a long time, especially if you're running high amounts of PEDs. Not very good for longevity. If you're being moderate and responsible with it, it's probably healthier than the normal American lives. I would consider most people drink. A large portion of people drink. A large portion of people are sedentary. A large portion of people eat like absolute dog crap. Some people smoke. Some people do rec drugs. I don't do any of those things. I eat healthy. I try to live a relatively healthy lifestyle. Yes, I am pushing food hard. I am taking PEDs. And I go about 270 pounds in the off season, which probably isn't the best for living to be 90 years old. But not all of us want to live to be 90 years old. For me, it's about the quality of life that I live from start to finish more so than it is how long I live. Now, I may change my mind. Probably somewhere down the road, I will give up the bodybuilding thing, lose some weight, and pull back to TRT. We'll see, but that's probably what I will do. I don't know. To be honest with you, it's more just mental exhaustion, getting tired of living the bodybuilding lifestyle. I get tired of weighing and measuring all my food and eating 6 times a day. That gets really old. That's really the part that I get tired of. I love to train. I love bodybuilding itself. I don't love eating chicken and rice 6 times a day. That sucks. So at some point, I will probably give that up. Just eat more of a healthy, moderate diet. Probably a Mediterranean style diet, eat 3 times a day. I honestly don't have a big appetite. I have to force myself to eat. I would rather have some flexibility in what I eat. Having to weigh and measure all your food and carry it with you everywhere you go is a real pain in the butt. And it's not very fun, to be honest with you, but I do it because I love the sport and I love pushing myself. There are also other things that guys at our age do that is really stupid and risky. People always talk about bodybuilding being risky. How many 45, 50, 60-year-old dudes you see go out and buy a Harley and go around and ride a Harley and smoke cigars and drink whiskey every weekend ride that Harley with no helmet on. I would argue that that's probably a riskier lifestyle than living the bodybuilding lifestyle. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But to me, those guys pointing at us saying, why do you do what you do is sort of hypocritical. It's just my 2 cents. Everybody should live their life in a way that makes them feel the best and helps them find fulfillment. And if other people don't like it, they can go fuck off. That's sort of how I feel. All right, folks, I want to take a quick break from this episode to tell you about the new e-course that Kurt Havens and I have put together, the scientific principles of anabolics and PEDs. This is the most comprehensive PED E-Course ever put together with over 80 modules, including intros to PEDs, major steroid profiles, competitor off-season cycles, non-competitor cycles, contest prep cycles, HGH fundamentals, insulin fundamentals, side effect management, safer use concepts, fat loss agents, estrogen management, and advanced PED and hypertrophy science. It is the best course out there of its kind. Go check it out. Link is in the video description below. Brian Stell Fox 8521. He says, hey, Paul, just some context. I'm 34, 6'1", 235 pounds, 13% body fat. I've been a fan of yours for some time, especially once I realized how similar our stories are. We have very similar bodies, similar structure, similar genetics, even similar life stories. I got divorced 5 years ago, got fat, lost muscle, so I'm on the waiting list for your off-season program. Appreciate the support, man. It's wild to me how many guys resonate with my story of going through a divorce and getting fat and using food as a crutch. I guess there's a lot of us that go through the same things. Anyway, question for my biceps growth. My biceps have always been shit. Every other body part is growing equally well, but not my biceps. I've run DC training in the past 2 years. And now I'm running some of the John Meadows programs. I've also run higher volume for arms, high intensity. The growth just seems to be slow. My arms are stuck at 18 inches. Full shapes, striations, biceps barely peak or have any detail. Am I being impatient or do you have some other tips? All right, so a couple of thoughts here. Bicep peak, that's just mainly genetics. My arms are over 20 inches. You guys see my arms in my pictures. They're big. And I have zero bicep peak. And people are saying, why don't you do this? Why don't you do concentration curls? Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. It's just how my biceps are shaped. There's some dudes that have peaks. There's some dudes that don't. I have long, really long, flat biceps. Dorian Yates would be an example of a pro bodybuilder who had very long, flat biceps. Now, you can make them bigger. You can make muscles bigger, but you can't inherently change the shape that you were given from the gods. Now, getting them bigger, you talked about doing DC training. Dante Trudel told me something that was very, very, very sound, and I didn't even think of it when I worked with him. He said, if you want 18-inch biceps and you're 200 pounds, you got to be 250 if you want 20-inch biceps. So if you get bigger, you're going to have bigger arms. It really is that simple. I will say this. Arm training seems to be the one thing that I see the most ego lifting going on in the gym. And I struggle to get my arms to grow. I am a very long, lanky, tall basketball player, body build. I always had skinny, long arms. And arms were just always a challenge for me to get to grow. And I thought the way to make my arms grow was to continue to train progressively with them, beat the logbook, hammer them with more weight and more weight. And what I realized along the way, that as I increased these curls, I was curling 145 pounds on the barbell and I had these gigantic front delts. But what I realized is when I was doing the curls, I was tilting them up, taking leverage off of my biceps and putting a lot of the tension actually not on my biceps, but on my front delts, and my front delts got gigantic. So my bicep curls were really a front delt exercise and not a bicep exercise. When I put my ego aside and took a step back, and lowered the weights and got full range of motion and actually felt the exercise in the targeted muscle, placed tension on the targeted muscle, guess what? My biceps started to grow. So a lot of times when I see dudes with lagging body parts that won't grow, it's not so much an issue of they need to do something more, they need to do something different. It's their form that sucks. And so think about it this way. If your form sucks and you throw more volume at it, you're just doing more of the shitty stuff that wasn't working before. So you're literally not helping yourself at all. What you need to do is think critically about how your form looks and take a deep step back and make sure that you have perfect form. You may already have perfect form. I don't know, but that's just a thought. And also what Dante said is true too. Just get bigger. If you get bigger, your arms are going to get bigger too. Kupo5688 asks, I have a herniated disc in my lower back. I was wondering if you could make a video on how to train for bodybuilding whilst having a herniated disc. You must be British. Nobody in America says whilst. I have a herniated disc in my lower back. I did it on deadlifts years ago. And I thought my bodybuilding career was over because I had wrapped my identity around doing heavy barbell compound movements. And then I had a realization, I don't need to do those to grow. So one of the big things I have found as I've aged as a bodybuilder, I want to protect my spine at all costs. I rarely do any exercises, heavy rowing exercises, any exercise with legs that doesn't have the back braced. So for legs, for example, I no longer do barbell squats. I don't do anything where I am putting my spine at risk. My leg exercises, for example, will be hack squats, leg presses, both have the back braced, or I'll do something like sissy squats, which really aren't placing any load on the back, or walking lunges, which really aren't placing load on the back, or at least not that much, or split squats or leg extensions. For back exercises, I almost always do braced rows on machines. I don't train with barbell rows anymore. Once in a while, I will do them, but I try to be smart with how much weight I use. I don't do deadlifts anymore. Maybe it's, cost my physique a little bit. I don't know. But for me, if I hurt myself or if I'm in pain all the time, if my lower back's in pain and I can't train 100%, how much am I going to progress anyway? There's no point in taking a risk of injuring myself. If I'm injured, I'm not going to be able to train. And if I can't train, I can't grow. If my back is always sore and hurting, I'm not going to be able to train optimally when I am training. So I'm probably not going to grow either. So why do stuff that's going to make your back hurt? I would do everything braced. Just that simple. Protect your spine at all costs. And I think you'll find that you'll grow from that. Mr. and Mrs. Blue Collar Bodybuilding, my friends Dave and Jackie, ask, any concerns if HGH leaves lumps in the stomach from sub-Q shots? I've had some lumps. They generally go away in my experience if you just rotate injection sites. That is an argument for doing IM. But if you think about it, if you're having lumps there, you're probably going to have lumps in your muscle too. I don't get overly concerned about it. It seems to me that they go away. I would just rotate sites. I have heard of HGH causing divots and localized issues. Maybe it's a thing. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just all pseudoscience BS. But I have heard of HGH causing localized fat burning where it'll leave divots where you inject it. I don't know if that's a thing or not. So don't hold my feet to the fire if that's incorrect, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just rotate away. Those lumps will probably go away. Massage them. They'll probably go away. All right, folks, that's all I've got on this one. Just a reminder, check out the e-course that Kurt Havens and I have created, The Science of Anabolics and Performance Enhancing Drugs. Link is in the video description below. It is the best e-course out there, science-based e-course on performance-enhancing drugs and anabolic steroids, HGH, insulin, side effects, everything is in there. You can learn a few things and not be a dummy. Well worth the money. Check it out. I have a free preview of it. You don't even have to buy it. There's probably 2 hours worth of content on there for free. you can check out. Go to it. Link is below. Thank you for watching. For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.